Welcome to NACD BoardVision, where leading boardroom advisors, governance professionals, and seasoned directors discuss critical issues related to your responsibilities in the boardroom.
Hi, I'm Christopher Clark, publisher of NACD Directorship magazine, and this is BoardVision. Today's topic is board communications, but under the umbrella of a crisis. We're joined today by Michael Robinson, partner of CLS Strategies, and Jeff Powell, EVP at Diligent. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good to be here, Chris.
I'm going to jump right in, and in terms of technology in crisis, we're over the times where boards and companies are going to run away and hide and do the stonewall tactic. You've got to be engaged. But I want to ask both of you a very general question. Whether you're a company or you're a board, how can you best use the latest in technology?
Sure, Chris. And I think that there are a couple things to realize. The first is, to be in business today means you're going to be in crisis at some point. It may be a business crisis. It may be an enterprise-wide issue like a data breach, but it's going to happen. So how do you prepare for it? And you're exactly right. There's technology that allows you to do two things right away. First is social listening. What are people saying about you? And it's important when you're looking at that to understand that not all critics and not all allies are created equal. Some may have more authority than others. So it's not just what they're saying, but who is saying it and where they're saying. And that needs to be done in real time so you can see things coming.
Technology is not something to be afraid of. It's not to be feared that technology is going to be used against the company. It's not that, technology is something that we have to worry about shutting down or preventing. That of course there are concerns about misuse of technology or breaches of a company, but that for the most part technology is a benefit. It's something that we use to improve communication, not just among people within our company, but also people who are watching our company. The old adage would be there's no such thing as bad publicity. Now it's that there's no such thing as bad communication. Whether or not people are saying positive things about you or negative things about you, you have the ability and almost the responsibility to be aware of that, to be aware of that communication and to be part of that communication, and I suppose as much as possible to be driving that communication in the direction that you want it to go.
How do you build those reputational brownie points? And not just that you use technology, give me some specific, you can even give me brand names or specifics. I want to know if
Sure.
I'm a director, what can I use?
Sure.
Or what categories, maybe that's a safer way, what categories of technology are best? Either one of you.
Jeff, go ahead.
It's interesting. For me, in terms of information technology, I'm going to be inclined to say everything. You want as much information as possible. That it's, we were joking about, who reads the newspaper anymore? But I read the newspaper. I'm also online constantly. I'm also going to be monitoring whatever feeds I happen to be plugged into in that day. And I think that it's important to encourage your board members to be the same way.
One of the things we routinely do with all of our clients, especially as we enter a new year, is scenario planning. We're not going to know everything that's going to happen in 6, 9, 10 months, but we can put them into buckets. We can say, you're going to have a series of business issues, you're going to have a series of governance issues, whether it's succession planning, whether it's compensation, and you may have some enterprise-wide issues. If you're in the technology space, you better be ready for a data breach. If you're in the consumer products space, you better be ready for a product recall. Those are board-level risk mitigation actions that the board really ought to be focusing on. And there's always that balance, Chris, between what should management do and what should the board do. I think in this case, when it becomes that important, the board needs to take an interest. They shouldn't be doing it, they're not managing it, but they're making sure that it's there. And the answer of, I've got a Google alert, that doesn't cut it in 2014. Not anymore.
But what about this trend tracking? How do you advise your clients? You work with the C-suite, you work with the boards, because that's an art and a science, and I think that's part and parcel of a little bit of what we're talking about.
Of course, Chris, as you say, it's not possible to prepare for everything, and you break things down into likelihoods. I work for a company that's a software provider of a software as a service. So obviously, top of our list is going to be a breach. but we have to be concerned with other things. I mean, something that Hurricane Sandy taught us was it hadn't occurred to us, well, what happened if the lower half of the island of Manhattan shuts down? You know, that was a tough lesson that we got through well, but it showed us that there was an area of physical planning that we hadn't necessarily thought about. So it's almost impossible to go too far down the scale of what you might think about, but you have to prioritize them based upon your business.
What do you see as the next iterations, if you can, or at least, I'm not saying 10, 20 years out, but I'm just saying the next year or two, what might be happening?
Please.
Well, it's interesting talking about technology because, of course, I mean, technology is sometimes like a runaway freight train. I mean, it's remarkable how quickly things change. I mean, our industry, board portals. 10 years ago, most people would have said, what's a board portal? Now it's something that's so taken for granted. You know, we're on to questions like, well, should my board members be on Twitter? I mean, it's remarkable how fast technology has changed. And I think that, you know, one of the things is that it's important to understand that every company benefits from technology. I mean, there's very few businesses out there that don't have a day-to-day practical application for technology. And, you know, for the board, it's specifically about communicating with the board, you know, having that timely, if necessary, daily communication with them.
I think the recent trend of board members being held personally responsible for what companies do is going to increase. And so if you're a board member, what does that mean? It means I want more information. I want to just know what the company is telling me. I need to know that, of course, but I want to know what other people are saying. I want to know what the competition is doing. I want to know what the peer group is doing. I want to know what the regulators are doing. So being able to create a stream of information that informs individual members of the board is a rising tide that lifts the boat of the company.
I want to thank you personally for coming today. And on behalf of NACD and Diligent, thank you for joining us today. I'm Chris Clark, and this is BoardVision.